murder in the first degree and other related charges. How do you plead to this indictment, sir? Guilty or not guilty?
Not guilty.
Days before Christmas, accused killer Luigi Mangione entered this plea for the charges he faces in New York in the murder of United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson. The plea was for the state charges, which includes first-degree murder and murder in the second degree as a crime of terrorism. It's that terrorism charge that we want to focus on and break down today. This morning, our 9 News legal expert, Whitney Traylor, is here with us to talk a little bit more about it. Whitney, thank you so much for being here this morning.
Sure, good morning. Yes, good to be here.
Absolutely. We were just talking a little bit about this. Why did Luigi Mangione's case rise to the level of terrorism? When we're talking about school shooters, we don't often see that additional charge.
Right, yeah, that's a great point, comparing it to the school shooters. But here, I think the real difference, this is a 9/11 law that was passed in New York, and it's an anti-terrorism law that was, and a few other states actually have it as well. But here, these are state charges related to Luigi Mangione. And what they're saying is that a crime of terrorism, it's sort of an add-on. And so what they're saying is when there was an intent to intimidate or coerce a civilian population or influence the government, then they're going to add on this terrorism charge. And so they did here. Whether it will stick, there's some issues with the state and federal charges, which I'm sure we'll talk about. But this is an interesting law. It's not used a lot. It's really specific to New York.
So specific to New York, so that's interesting. And then we, when I think about terrorism, I think large scale.
Right.
And this is a single person. So we were just talking about that. Can you break down that a little bit more as well?
No, that's a great point. It's an astute observation because, and that's actually what the defense is saying in terms of why these charges don't really jive. Because on the state charge, they're asserting this this terrorism charge, which, as you said, is dealing with kind of a group of people. And that's actually the notion behind it, is that there's this notion to intimidate a whole group of people. But there's also federal charges for stalking. And so the stalking charges are obviously just for one individual. And so I think you're going to see the defense putting forward something saying, hey, you can't have both.
Right.
And now there are state and federal charges, and they're moving forward in a parallel fashion. So I think you're going to see the state charges go first and then the federal charges, so they can always modify what they go after on those federal charges once the state trials have been completed.
Yeah, we just talked about those differences, so we'll move on to the defense. So this is interesting. They claimed they can't get a fair trial. This is because it's been so public.
Yes.
His attorney specifically talked about the perp walk with all of the media attention, right? And so a lot of people are curious about that. What's that argument, and what do you think the court will do? Yeah,
the perp walk was a lot of people pointed out that, when they walked him through, it's usually 2, 3, 4 people, and it was like a group of 20 or something. And so, it looks like they were really trying to highlight that. And of course, the defense is going to say you're not going to be able to get an unbiased jury. The mayor has made comments that asserting guilt. Hey, you can't do this in our city. We're not going to have the terrorism. So I think the defense is saying, hey, we can't get a fair trial. But that's really the case with any high-profile case. You're going to have a difficult chance to find a jury. And it's not really a matter of, hey, does the jury not know anything about this case? The question is, can they be unbiased? Right. Can they go in and wait to hear all the evidence? Now, I would argue that on the flip side, when you're talking about the defense, he's had so much public support, right? I mean, in the court of public opinion, there's a lot of people who are saying, yeah, the healthcare system's messed up. Right. This was just a reflection of it. This was just a symptom, if you will. So I think there's also going to be an argument that I think there's going to be jurors who are going to support him. Yeah. Whereas when you think of, Jeffrey Dahmer or some of these other difficult people, it's very one-sided. And this one, it's interesting, and that raises a whole nother kind of sociological argument about how we're responding as a society, because we obviously don't condone violence and murder, but here it's not necessarily being celebrated, but the notion like that the little guy can stand up against the big company is really resonating with folks.
Yeah, really curious to see how this all continues to unfold. Whitney, thank you so much for being with us this morning.
Sure thing, good to be here.